So hello everyone, it's 5 o'clock and we're going to be getting started with our Vegan Spirituality Conference call. We have this call every month, and the intention of the call is to bring people together to discuss what does it mean to be vegan as a spiritual path, that's our spiritual practice. And we gather together the group Vegan Spirituality. Actually, we have a website, veganspirituality.com, and on there you can see that we have groups all across the country that also meet every month, and they meet in person and discuss various topics related to veganism and spirituality, and also have events like retreats, and also we're starting a new event called the Compassion Fest. So there's a lot of things going on in person with these groups, but we decided that it would be great for people who don't live in the areas where we happen to have a vegan spirituality group to be able to participate in this discussion every month and to really explore on a deeper level, what does it mean to be vegan? How does it impact our lives and our spiritual path, our practices as well? So again, my name is Lisa Levinson, and I work for In Defense of Animals, and this is part of this Vegan Spirituality Project. It's part of our sustainable activism campaign, offering emotional and spiritual resources for activists and advocates of animals. But the Vegan Spirituality Project started well before that, several years ago. In the small town of Philadelphia, and we gathered together just to create a space, a forum to discuss the possibility of looking into veganism as a spiritual path. And as a result, there was a community that built off of that, and this conversation that we're having is even a part of the larger network that started of people who are connecting regularly and discussing our connection to compassion as being the basis of our spiritual path. So a little bit about the logistics for the call. If you have, we will be doing a Q&A, and I will announce our speaker in just a moment. But when we do the Q&A, if you have a question or want to speak, if you press number 1 on the keypad of your phone, then that'll give me a clue. It'll let me know that you have a question, and I can call on you and unmute you, and that's how we can have our conversation with everyone. So that's the technical side. And just for folks who might be interested in starting a local vegan spirituality group, you can do that. I will help you. I have a lot of resources to help people get started. You can send me an email at veganspirituality@gmail.com, and then I will help you get started if you feel like your area has some vegans who might be interested in meeting every month. So I'm super honored to share with you our guest for today. And our guest is Dr. Will Tuttle. Many of you may know of him because he's the author of The World Peace Diet. And I am going to give you a little bit more background about him. In addition to being the author of the acclaimed bestseller, World Peace Diet, Dr. Tuttle is a recipient of the Courage of Conscience Award. He is the creator of several wellness and advocacy training programs and co-founder of Veganpalooza, the largest online vegan event in history. A vegan since 1980 and former Zen monk, he has created 8 CD albums of uplifting original piano music. The co-founder of Circle of Compassion, he is a frequent radio, television, and online presenter and writer. With his spouse, Madeline, a Swiss visionary artist, he presents over 100 lectures, workshops, and concerts annually throughout North America and Europe. And Dr. Will Tuttle can be reached through his website at theworldpeacediet.com. So it's really an honor to have Dr. Tuttle with us today. And for those of you who are on the computer, you'll be able to see him. He's got his webcam going, and so you'll be able to actually see him as he speaks in just a moment. I wanted to also mention that Dr. Tuttle has been a part of our sustainable activism program as well. He's offered discussions like workshops on effective vegan advocacy and presented for folks in the Los Angeles area. He has also been one of the featured speaker at our vegan spirituality retreat, and that's something near and dear to our hearts. And we've gathered together every year for 6 years, and one of those years Dr. Tuttle spoke in Los Angeles and also in Philadelphia. So I'm super grateful to Dr. Tuttle, and he, in addition to that, he's been helping us through In Defense of Animals to put together some sustainable activism tips. So we will probably talk a little bit about that today, and also you can see those on the Facebook page for In Defense of Animals. So without any further ado, I'd like to introduce Dr. Tuttle. Just have a big hello. Hey, Dr. Tuttle, how are you doing? Let's see. Are you there?
Are you there? Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah. Now I can. Now I can. Fabulous. And I think
good.
everyone else can hear you too. That's wonderful.
Good.
Excellent.
Okay, so can you remind everyone again what they press to be recognized so they can ask a question or make a comment?
Oh, definitely.
Is it one? Number one?
If anyone, number one. If you press any number, I will see it. Any number of 1 to 5, I will see it. But 1 is just an easy one to remember. Just press number 1, but it's on the keypad of your phone. That's where you'll press, and you can that communicates with us and tells us, hey, that you've got a question.
Yeah, good. Because I would love to just respond to people's questions, really. So, but if nobody's asking questions, then I'll share some thoughts with everyone too. But really, if you have any questions or concerns or comments or anything like that, I'd love to be able to open this up to your ideas. And can you still hear me okay if I don't hold this right up? I'm holding it I'm not. Can you still hear me okay? Yeah? Good.
Yeah. Yes,
all
I can
right,
hear you okay.
So,
we do actually have a question, so I'm going to
all right.
Yeah. Let's see. Oops, where did the person go? 1 second. There we go. So we have Marcia on the line, so I'm going to go ahead and unmute her so she can ask her question to you. Just 1 moment. Okay. Oops. There we go. Hi, Marcia. Are you there?
Hi there. I'm here. Dr. Tuttle, your book is absolutely wonderful. I have a copy sitting on my desk, and it's time to read it again. But what I wanted to talk to you about, I think we've probably all noticed the animal exploiters fighting back against veganism and animal rights with things like ag-gag laws. But you mentioned something in your book called, this is really interesting and kind of ominous, to food disparagement laws that can even affect what diets can be discussed and who can discuss them, and stopping the video, for example, of Diet for a New America. And then apparently the National Eating Disorders Association has come up with a concept called orthorexia nervosa, which I suppose could potentially discredit diets or define them as abnormal. So I was just wondering what's going on with that.
Right. Yeah, okay. Those are very good questions. And, I think, unfortunately, I wrote about it when I wrote The World Peace Diet, which we're now exactly 10 years. We're having this year, 2015, the 10-year anniversary edition of The World Peace Diet. So when the World Peace Diet came out in 2005, they were just starting to talk about orthorexia nervosa, which is the I think a very insidious kind of idea that someone has some kind of a treatable mental illness if they won't feed their children burgers and McDonald's. Then you've got an orthorexia nervosa because you have a fascination or an addiction to healthy foods. So I think, and then there's been, since the Wilkie Side was written, there's been a lot more of the Ag-Gag laws and more of the Food Disparagement Act. Things have been happening. But I think, in general, these are things that could be predicted by an industry that is enormously powerful and that controls huge areas of government and media, and the medical industry is also very much, I think in many ways, beholden to the animal agriculture industry and the fast food industry, because the huge profits that come from the pharmaceutical industry, for example, require a reliable flood of sick people to buy their products. All the medications for heart disease and breast, prostate, and colon cancer, and liver disease, and kidney disease, and diabetes medications, and treatments for obesity, and all these things which people who are vegan are at very low risk for any of these kinds of things. So, I in a way, I'm delighted that 10 years after the Wilkie Diet was written, that it hasn't been worse, in the sense that there's not, these laws, unfortunately, and there are people pushing for more draconian repression of veganism. But the good news is that the science and the people doing the vegan outreach have been working really hard, and the science has gotten continues to be strongly in our favor. And now also with the environmental degradation that's associated with animal agriculture becoming gradually more recognized, I think that it's going to be hard for them to make a lot of progress with these things. I mean, there's a huge public backlash. There's more and more ag-gag laws. That's true, but they're paying a huge price. The general public is getting more and more cynical about animal agriculture, that they have to have these ag-gag laws, and there's more of a public perception that animal agriculture and meat and dairy are cruel and toxic, and that's why they have to have these laws. So it's pretty easy to buy off politicians. That's not difficult, and pass these laws. But I think they're paying a huge price, and in the long run, we're going to be victorious because, like Gandhi said, in the end, the truth always wins out. So in the end, I think we will be victorious, and veganism will triumph, at some point along the way, hopefully. I mean, I guess it's hard to. I don't want to be too trivial in saying that. I think we have huge challenges. Actually, there's enormous challenges that we're facing, legal challenges, and just the fact that people are so overwhelmingly programmed to eat meat, dairy products, and eggs from infancy, that we have 10,000 years of inertia with living in a herding culture that's organized around owning animals as property for food primarily. So we have a huge amount of work to do, and these laws and these kinds of mental illnesses, so-called, are just pure fabrications to boost profits for industry. That's all they are. And the pharmaceutical industry has been doing this a lot. They've been fabricating a lot of social anxiety disorder and a lot of other things. They just make these things up in order to sell drugs. And so it's not surprising that they would be making up things around food, because food is another activity that people take very seriously. So it's pretty easy for them to make more profits on anything that has to do with food. So I think, again, it's serious. It's a serious challenge, but I think with the good news being that we have a movie coming out soon, I think next month, beginning next month, July 4th. Plant Pure Nations is going to be coming out. We have Cowspiracy coming out. And it's been out already, actually, but it's growing in popularity. And Forks Over Knives and a lot of other as well as undercover videos and celebrities going vegan, and just a huge amount of positive publicity happening continually. So I think in the face of all that, it's going to be difficult for them to get a lot of traction. That's my general sense of it right now.
Mm-hmm. And Dr. Tuttle, do you mind if I pop in on that question too? Because I actually worked in an eating disorder facility for many years, and I know that being vegan was not allowed for the women who were in recovery. They had to be vegetarian, and so that was a big conflict for many of them. And they were often, this other term of orthorexia, those things were used, and if someone said they were vegan, not only were things not allowed to practice their path, their chosen path, they also had to kind of prove it, and someone had to provide a doctor's note not to have any dairy. So it's very tricky in that field of recovery for people to honor their own beliefs and to also recover.
Was this recovery from what? Yeah. What was this recovery? Was it recovery from, was it overweight?
From anorexia. Anorexia wow. Or bulimia. Yeah.
Really?
But I did actually meet with the director, the medical director, and mentioned to her that many people come in vegan, and it's very easy because a lot of the practitioners, the nutritionists, felt as though people were vegan so that they could lose weight and not vegan for ethical reasons. And I suggested to them it would be very easy to figure out the difference, because just asking them questions related to animals and to ethics, you could easily figure out if somebody was vegan for ethical reasons or trying to follow a fad of some sort. But even that, it was very challenging to get through to the director, and I actually had the folks from PCRM lined up to go in and speak with the medical director, but they decided that they were not going to change their policy because there weren't enough vegans in the mainstream, but that once that did occur, they would need to review their policies again. So that was an eye-opening discussion, and also one that I think another necessary piece of the picture is to have vegan nutritionists, because once there are vegan nutritionists, then they will understand more of what it means ethically, but also nutritionally, to be able to be vegan as you're recovering from an eating disorder.
So, I was just at a conference last weekend in Orlando where I spoke, and there was a woman there named Michelle Simon, who's an expert in food policy, and she was saying how she went to the American Dietetic Association annual meeting, which is now, they've changed their name, but it's similar. But basically the organization that is responsible for accreditation of schools that give degrees in nutrition, get a degree in nutrition or in dietetics. And she said, you walk into this conference, this annual conference, and there are these gigantic booths that are paid for and run by Coca-Cola and Dannon Yogurt and Pepsi, and all the junk food manufacturers are there in force. And they're extremely powerful in determining what the curriculum is and what people think when they go through dietetic or nutritional training. Corporations make a lot of donations to higher education schools. So that's part of the problem. The dairy industry is renowned for enormous amounts of political influence. I just read an article today, a few minutes ago actually, in Business. No, it was in Mother Jones. Mother Jones magazine, which you would think would be a sort of a leftist or somewhat progressive, and they were talking about the devastating water shortage in California, and how the land is sinking and so forth. And they said it's because of agricultural use, and the only types of agriculture that they mentioned was almonds. They didn't say what they said in Fresno. The terrible drought and the land is sinking, and it's a region known for almond producing, and that's just not true. I mean, Fresno is basically a dairy. It's a headquarters of a huge dairy industry. So I was thinking, it's just amazing the power of the dairy industry, and what you were just saying kind of shows that it gets its tentacles everywhere, into people's minds and into education, into the media, into governmental regulations and so forth. And it's so funny that someone has to do dairy, or else they're seen to be not going to be successful in recovery. I mean, dairy is an addiction. Cheese, as you probably all know, concentrates many different toxic hormones, including IGF-1 growth hormone, and also casomorphins that are created when we digest them that are addictive. And so it is really an addictive. It's probably the most addictive food there is. And so it's so ironic to be saying people have to have dairy products if they're trying to get out of, if they're in recovery. I mean, it's like the opposite. It's like telling people who are trying to break, cigarette smoking, they have to have cigarettes. So again, it's all about education. We need to really educate, and we need to be whatever we can do to help to learn ourselves, and then to spread this message to other people, so that there's not so much terrible suffering is being caused by all of this, actually. But I'm not sure if this is connected exactly to spirituality, so maybe we should try to get it more into the spiritual dimension.
Well, actually, we do have another question, so I'm going to unmute. We've got Suzanne McAllister on a line, and Suzanne is actually part of our vegan spirituality, one of our vegan spirituality organizers for Philadelphia. So I'm going to go ahead and unmute her. Hi, Suzanne.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes,
hello.
We can.
Great.
Hello.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Will, and thank you, Lisa, for the call. And my question has to do with the Pope. And the Pope is going to be writing an encyclical about climate change, and I believe he's the first Pope to even address this issue. And he's also named for St. Francis, who we all know was the patron saint of animals. So every chance I get when I get something, an email about this, I send a message off saying that I hope he's going to include something about animal agriculture when he writes his encyclical. But I am a little minor voice, and so I started thinking, Will, I didn't know whether you had any channels to the Pope, any interest in writing to the Pope, sending him a copy of your book as he is preparing his comments about climate change. And he's also going to be in Philadelphia in September, and I think he may be going to New York. I think those are the only two places, but I don't know. I know he's got 2 stops. So anyway, I just had finished reading something online and sending off another message before I got on the call, so he's fresh on my mind.
Right. Yeah, I think he's one of the more progressive popes we've had in a while, and does seem to have a little bit of a soft spot for animals, from what I can tell. And also, he seems to have be more conscious about environmental issues. And I think it would be great if he would say something about animal agriculture and climate change, and that may carry weight somewhere, somehow with people. I think it would help perhaps educate people. It would be another voice that would perhaps. Al Gore should have all the way along, but he never did. And he still hasn't. Apparently, they still had a big global climate change meeting, gathering, conference, and he served meat and dairy there. It was his decision. And so, even though he's a vegan, he's just just not prepared to challenge people, I guess. And my feeling is that the Pope is probably under an enormous amount of pressure to not say anything about animal agriculture. And my feeling is that is what will prevail. Most likely, he won't say anything about animal agriculture. But I think it's good if people send him letters and encourage him to do that. I think, quite honestly, I think the best thing that he could do would be if he would, by his own example, change his own diet. Because if he says, "Oh yeah, animal agriculture is bad" or whatever, he's not going to want to do that because he's still eating meat and dairy. That's what he eats. Like all the other cardinals and bishops and everybody else. So it's all kind of hypocritical for him to say that. So he should go vegan.
That's a good point.
Go vegan. I think if he would go vegan, and then you could say, I'm gonna walk my talk. I'm gonna go vegan. If we're serious about this, we need to do this. That would have an impact. That would have an impact. So I think if people write in, they should say, go vegan. That's what we want you to do.
That's a great idea. That's a great idea. I like that.
Yeah.
And you're right. It would have much more power if he said, "This is what I'm doing."
Right. I'm doing this. Will you do it too? And then I think that would be a major force. That could, because people can't, because he's being an actual example there. And otherwise, I think it'll just be sort of downplayed by the media. No one will notice it. The media just reports what their masters tell them to report. So they don't report. Even if he says that, I don't think they'll report it probably.
Yeah.
So he has to do something that can't be that has to be noticed, and that would be great. So I think the more we can get political and religious leaders to actually change the way they're living and talk about why. That's why I think it's been great that Beyonce has been changing, and other people that are well known. I think it really does bring the whole idea before the public. So these are important ideas. And I also wanted to just mention when I said before that what we were talking about earlier about the whole thing with laws and the dairy industry and how much power they have and so forth, that isn't very spiritual. I should really quickly say that I believe that Gandhi was right when he said that anyone who says that politics isn't spiritual or that spirituality isn't political does not understand spirituality or politics. So that they are very much connected. And the way, the fact that we have the freedom to even have these calls and talk about these ideas, and the fact that we're able to buy vegan foods and talk to the Pope or call him or whatever. I don't have any personal ins with the Pope, although I am planning actually to, Madeline and I are going to be going to Rome and to Assisi this summer, and who knows, maybe we'll be able to do something. We'll be giving some talks on promoting veganism there. And we've sent copies of the World Peace Guide to lots of influential people like Barack Obama and Bill Clinton and other people. And I'm not sure if it's been read by them or not, but we're hoping that on some level it is. I think it always does help.
Yes, I was the one that sent your book to Michelle Obama, and she never.
Oh, right.
She never acknowledged it. It was really odd. I've sent things to the White House in previous administrations and always got an acknowledgement, and I thought, this just doesn't sound like the way I would imagine the White House is run. And I even called and followed up to say that I had never gotten any acknowledgement of it and never did hear anything. So, but anyway, I love your idea that it's really encouraging the Pope or Obama or any of them to become vegan. That's really what needs to happen rather than to speak about it. So thank you for that.
Great. Thank you so much for sending everything. Yeah, thanks.
And maybe you'll run into the Pope in Assisi. That would be great.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
All right, take care. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Suzanne.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
So if anyone else has a question, go ahead and press number 1 on the keypad of your phone. Okay, looks like we have another question here. There we go. I think it's from Marcia. She may have another question, so hold on. There we go. Marcia, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. We were just
Did
talking
you have another question?
Yes, I have. Well, it's a comment, kind of.
Oh, okay.
Okay, we were just talking about the Vatican and its statement on climate change. I have a copy of that. It's by the Pontifical Academy of Science and the Pontifical Academy of Social Sciences, and I'm not really finding anything in there that much about animal agriculture, about concern for animals, about the production of methane or toxic pesticides, or the runoff from the agricultural feedlots. There's just not that much in there on that topic, and so I was kind of disappointed in it. Most of the discussion of agriculture has to do with maybe seeds and the production of crops, and even there they don't mention about how much of those crops that the cattle eat that people could have. So frankly, I'm disappointed in it.
Thank you for that comment. That's helpful, and I'm not surprised because it's all very political, you know. So thank you. Thanks. Yeah, that's very interesting. Yeah, I think, you know, it's important to understand that this is really a grassroots movement, and we're still probably at the stage where the grassroots needs to get somewhat stronger before the people who are visible, the big people, the politicians, celebrities, and popes and people, feel safe to just come out and be pro-vegan. We need to get a little bit bigger movement going. I think it's growing by leaps and bounds. I mean, I think it is going very, very well. I heard in Germany and in quite a few other countries in Europe, it's really growing very fast. And they have, I saw this graphic of the number of vegan cookbooks that were published in Germany like 4 years ago, and it was like 6, and then 3 years ago, and it was like 15, and then 2 years ago, it was like 48, and like 1 year ago, it was like 180. You know, it's just taking off over there. Yeah, it's you know, it's just I think the time is really coming when we're realizing that we can no longer do animal agriculture, and you know, to me, it's analogous a little bit to smoking in the sense that, you know, I remember when I was young, when I was a kid, it was always considered something that was really a personal choice. And in the early days, and back in the 50s when I was a little kid, it was recommended by doctors. It's a good thing to smoke if you're stressed out. You know, I smoke Camels. You should smoke Camels too. And you know, quite a few asked about that. And then later it was seen to be, well, maybe it's not a good thing, but go ahead anyway. It's, you know, it's your own choice. And but it was only with the sort of discovery of the phenomenon of secondhand smoke that you're hurting other people. When you smoke, anyone around you who breathes in those fumes is harmed. And then with the discovery of third-hand smoke, that not only just if you smoke in a room and it gets into the drapes and the carpet, anyone who comes into that room is outgassing and it's hurting them too. And so suddenly, even though the tobacco industry in many ways was extremely good at doing the same thing the dairy and meat industry do with buying off scientists, buying off the media, keeping everyone in the dark that smoking is very detrimental to your health. But at a certain point, it was like the jig was up, and they couldn't go on anymore. And then the legislation started happening, and then you know, the smoking, the tobacco industry has really lost a huge amount of market in the United States because of that. And so they're now going overseas to Asia and Africa and other places to try to sell their wares. But there's such a profound cultural shift with tobacco because the idea is it's not a personal choice. You're hurting other people. If you want to smoke, go into this little room and sit there by yourself in the smoky room. You know, that's it. And so it lost so much of its glamour. And I think we're seeing the same thing starting to happen now with meat and dairy, with even finally the USDA recommending more and more against meat and dairy, not just because it's bad for your health. It was always hard to get any progress there because it's so easy to buy off science. Science, you know, is just is very detrimental. in many ways to what we're trying to do here, because it's so easy to buy off science and to create studies that say whatever you want them to say, and whoever the funders want them to say. And so, but now it's just becoming, absolutely incontrovertible fact that animal agriculture is destroying our water, water pollution and water depletion and methane and nitrous oxide and runoff and health. Everybody's insurance is driven up by all these sicknesses that people have from meat and dairy, and it's getting to the point where it's, I think, we're starting to hit the cusp of a major transformation where people see that eating meat and dairy is not a personal choice. You're hurting everyone. You're hurting hungry people who are starving because they're not able to eat the grain, because you, by buying meat and dairy, are driving up the price of grain in the world market to feed your cows and pigs and chickens and factory farm fishes while people are starving, which is causing war and hunger and poverty and misery for people. You're causing devastation to wildlife. And I think gradually, that's what I'm trying to talk a lot about too, is that free-range and organic meat and dairy are much worse for wildlife, because when animals are in factory farms, there's very little incentive for ranchers and farmers to kill wildlife, because the animals are in these horrible cages. But once you start having animals a little bit outside inside electrified fences where they still can't really move around much, but they may be targeted. And since that started happening in the last 5 or 6 or 10 years maybe, we've started having this sort of boom in Whole Foods selling free-range and organic, grass-fed and so forth animal foods. The U.S. Department of Agriculture's Wildlife Services, which basically pays the whole army of people, men, basically sadistic men, for the most part, who shoot coyotes from planes and who destroy their, bomb them in their dens and poison and burn and kill all kinds of wildlife. There's millions every year that we kill with our taxpayer dollars of all kinds of animals. Even little, even innocuous animals like raccoons and opossums and prairie dogs and so forth are targeted, because anytime a rancher or farmer complains, then the USDA is obligated to go out and try to eradicate these nuisances, these pests. So it's devastating to wildlife, it's devastating to our health, it's devastating to the global climate situation, to oceans that are being, really that's one of the most serious things. We're destroying the ocean so quickly because the demand for fish is gigantic for animals that we feed fish meal to, right? We fatten up the animals with fish meal, so cows and pigs and chickens are eating a lot of fish as well as human beings. And so I think as the conversation, somehow, if we can just keep these ideas in front of people and help educate, we'll begin gradually, hopefully, to be successful in getting laws following as well, and getting media articles. And it's great to see that we do have a vegan senator now, for example. We had always had Dennis Kucinich, who was a vegan congressman. We have a vegan senator. Hopefully we'll have more and more governors and other people who will be able to move into these positions, be supported by a more informed populace. And I think underlying all of this perhaps is a spiritual impulse that we perhaps cannot see, but there is perhaps a spiritual evolution of humanity that is happening. Maybe it's something that we are aware of at the deep core of our being, that on a deeper level, human beings are awakening. And the awakening is especially difficult, I think, around food, because it's ritualized, and we human beings tend to be extremely easily hypnotized by rituals. And when we have these very deep rituals that are injected into us from the time we're children, that the most powerful rituals in our society are around food, gathering together, with our families and eating the flesh of animals and eating secretions of animals, and that this is how we're loved by our mother and father, by our community, and this is how we fit in to the tribe. These are unbelievably deep. When I think about how deep these programs are, of questioning the tribal food for thousands of years meant that you just wandered off by yourself and died, and so no one could even begin to be a vegan, earlier, if it was a meat-eating or dairy-eating tribe or village. And so we have a situation today where we can finally begin to question the official stories of the gigantic tribe we're in, of our society. And like Krishnamurti, his famous saying that I love quoting, that it's not a good idea to be well adjusted to a profoundly sick society, right? So the spiritual path essentially has always been actually about questioning the official stories of whatever society we're born into and connecting with our intuition and letting that guide us in our lives rather than being guided by and driven by cultural norms and mores, which are very often the antithesis of spirituality. They're telling us to fit in, to be racist, to be sexist, to be speciesist. That's really what societies have been primarily in one way or another. They've been exclusivist. They've been oriented around materialism primarily, especially in the last 8,000 years in Western society. So I think we're seeing, I do feel it, that there is positive change happening. I don't know if the computer technology, the internet and all that, if that is helping or hurting. Sometimes I think it's helping. Sometimes I think it's really making it worse. People get so disconnected from nature, being in front of a computer screen all the time. And I think it's really important for us to get outside and connect with nature and to be creative and to dance and to move and to connect with each other face to face, not just through the medium of the internet or through some kind of web-based thing, but actually get together and share food together and potlucks and go on retreats together and meditate together and take walks in nature together and do something, to connect. But I think the internet can be a wonderful way to learn from each other and to share. Like, that's why I think this is a fantastic thing we're doing here, because these ideas have enormous power. And so, I think underlying everything there is perhaps a spiritual quickening or ripening that's happening. And I think that may be behind the fact that tobacco companies can no longer deceive the public, in more where there's more democratic, somewhat more democratic possibilities. And I think the same thing is going to be happening more and more with meat and dairy industries. It's going to be more clearly seen that this is antisocial behavior. It's really devastating to the poor animals who suffer terribly. It's devastating to ecosystems and to our cultural fabric. That people, there's whole armies of people that have to stab animals all day, do work that brings out the worst in them. It's traumatic. It creates webs of trauma that radiate into our society. And again, spirituality, veganism is spirituality, but that's what it is. And it's really important, I think, for us to understand that at a deep level, that Donald Watson, when he coined the word vegan, was essentially creating a word that's in many ways synonymous with ahimsa, the ancient Sanskrit word that means nonviolence, that we do not harm others for our own benefit, not because it's not healthy, or it's not good for the environment, because it's immoral, it's unethical, it's a pathway, it's non-spiritual. It's a pathway that leads to misery for them and even more misery for the perpetrator. And so ultimately it is a spiritual awakening, I think, that leads us to veganism. But many people in our, we're born into a society, into a culture that's profoundly materialistic, because 10,000 years ago we started owning animals as property for food, and so we started learning to look with eyes that when we see a being, we don't see a being, we just see a thing, we see a matter. We see a cow and we don't look at the being, we don't look at into the eyes of the cow, we don't see another living being there like we did before that. Before we owned animals, we knew these animals were beings and they had powers and they were mysterious and they were cohabitants with us and we respected them. Once they became property, their worth was measured by how heavy they were. By how would we like it? What's my net worth? And I think it's very demeaning that we have to measure our net worth and by how many dollars we have in the bank. Right? That's the worst thing. But how much worse it would be if it was by what your weight is. I mean, that's what we do. We do that to billions of animals. We reduce them to matter, and we create that whole archetype of reducing beings to things. And sure enough, we do the same thing to ourselves. We reduce ourselves to mere objects, to a thing that was born and will die, to an object that was born and will die. So we don't see ourselves as consciousness, as eternal and infinite consciousness that was never born and will never die, that is manifesting for a while through a physical vehicle, which is the same thing with animals. They are infinite spiritual consciousness that will never born and will never die, that are manifesting through a physical vehicle. That when we see that, we have awe and respect for them. We see beyond just the outer physical material level. But now it's gotten so severe in our society today that science has become a faith-based religion, basically. You have to just believe whatever the official theory of science is today, and there's no proof of it. A lot of it is extremely absurd and ridiculous, but we're taught that we have to believe whatever the scientists tell us, whatever the evolutionary theories or whatever they are. Materialistic, that the universe is a product of random mutation of things, and these totally ridiculous things. And so, as vegans, I think it's important to understand that we're still products of our society, so we have been, in many ways, programmed by our society to be materialistic, to look in terms of just the surface level of things, to be scientific. And being scientific is somehow a good thing. And I think this shallow way of seeing the world, where that nothing exists unless you can measure it physically. I mean, this is the most materialistic society probably that's ever existed that we know of, and the most suicidal, the most, in many ways, depraved in terms of environmental devastation because of it. So I think we're awakening out of that. That materialism has become the religion, in a sense. The priests, the scientists are in many ways the ones who are devastating the way that in the medieval period the church devastated the cultural landscape through persecuting the so-called witches, who were really healers and herbalists and beautiful women who were helping their culture, but they demonized them and they burned them at the stake and they terrorized the society for hundreds of years. And the same thing is happening in many ways today at the hands of science. And so I found, for example, just the other day, I applied in Switzerland and in Austria to speak with their local vegan societies, and they went on my website and they said, "No, you're too spiritual. We don't want to have you speak here. We only want to have scientific things." And I think it's just so shallow that they would actually not see that what veganism is questioning the commodification of life, questioning the pervading worldview that reduces everything, forest to board feet of lumber, and cost-benefit analysis of animals and human beings, and this whole reductionism, to really see the sacred in life. And out of that, we automatically live our lives in ways that would not harm other living beings. We just naturally have a sense of the sacred. And I think that sense of the sacred, the sense of the infinite beauty of nature and the beauty of our lives and the celebratory quality of life, these are things that you can't learn out of a book. These are things we have to somehow quiet our mind, connect with our intuition, in many ways forget the official stories that have taught us that nature is just a competitive, violent, animals eating other animals, and it's all a terrible thing. And people use that as an excuse to eat animals. Like, we bring them here, and we raise them, and they're safe, they're happy. That's only a very unfree people could ever even think those thoughts. That's such a complete delusion. The animals are celebrating their life. The worst thing you can do to them is like the worst thing you can do to us, is to put us in prison. It's a punishment. And to confine them physically, it's a horrible thing. But that's what we do to billions of animals, and we do it to ourselves. So I think the essential spiritual teaching for our time is really to question, and for vegans especially, to question the materialism. To question also the programming that we have within ourselves, to blame other people who are not vegan yet, maybe, to blame them, to shame them, to criticize them, to judge them. We have to realize that we've all been wounded by being born into this society of eating meat, dairy products, and eggs. We've all had our natural wisdom and compassion repressed. We've all had our natural spiritual joy repressed. We've, in many ways, been trying to become cogs in a machine designed to turn flowing, beautiful ecosystems into widgets that are sold at Walmart, and to participate in that, and to not question it, and to honor and uphold governmental and corporate and financial and educational and religious institutions that all support that same thing. And what veganism is essentially at its core is ahimsa. It's nonviolence. It's a radical questioning of all of that, of the very foundation of that. And so as vegans, I think we have to realize that we need to not only just go vegan in the sense of giving up meat, dairy products, and eggs, and wool and silk and leather, and products tested on animals, and zoos and rodeos and circuses and all that. Yeah, we give all that up. Of course, it's great. That's nothing to give up. I mean, we're happy to do that because who wants to pay to cause misery and violence to other beings? Nobody. I mean, I don't think anybody does deep down. So it's not hard to give that up. What's harder to give up is the deeper program of feeling separate, that I'm fundamentally separate from others, that I'm a fundamentally separate object, that I'm a thing. And this is what's injected into us with our meal. And I think the real spiritual path is getting to the point where we understand how our culture has evolved in a sense, and still is, a herding culture organized around owning animals for food, that it has injected into us all a mentality of exclusivism and of commodification of life and of predation and of suppressing the sacred feminine and of privilege and elitism. All of us have been injected with that. So we can go vegan and still have all of that in us. We need to really do the inner work, and that's why I think meditation is so important, to quiet the mind and connect with our inner wisdom, and then to live our lives and our relationships with the people we love, our friends and family, and with everyone, relationships that are based on honoring and respecting them and not trying to change them. A lot of times vegans want to change the world, and yet that can be a very violent thing. People do not want to have me come in and manipulate them and change them. So we have to just, instead of trying to change people, I think we have to learn how to plant seeds of kindness and compassion by sharing our own personal stories and telling people how wonderful it is to awaken from the dream of being merely a consumer of violence and abuse of animals, and how much healthier it is and how much better it is for the environment and how happy we are we've done it. Plant that seed, because I think at a deep level no one wants to be merely a programmed automaton engaging in behaviors that are not in their best interest just because they've been told to do that by a culture that is pretty much, I think everyone can see, is on borderline insane, right? I mean, what we're doing to the rainforest, cutting down an acre per second of rainforest, destroying the lungs of the earth, destroying the oceans, just growing so much meat and dairy while the water tables go dry. These are not actions from rational people. There's something really crazy going on here. So building weapons to destroy ourselves millions of times over while people go hungry. I mean, these are not rational. So we have to. I think everybody knows that. So the idea is to talk to people in a way where we just share our own experience in a loving way. And I think as we do that, we'll create a new movement. That's my idea. Instead of just a vegan movement, it's a spiritual movement. It's a movement based in spiritual in the best sense, in transformation, in a psychological transformation where, as Gandhi said, we are the change we want to see in the world, that there can never be any positive social change without positive personal change, and we are actually doing the work to make those changes in our lives, because it's too easy to just blame it on Monsanto and blame it on Cargill and blame it on McDonald's and these bad corporations, and if we would just get them to go away, everything would be fine. Yeah, they do. They are doing bad things. There's no question about it. But the underlying reason they can do that is because billions, millions anyway, 300 million people in the United States are voting for them. They're going to McDonald's and voting. We're buying this stuff. So we have to stop buying it. We have to, again, live this at a deeper level ourselves, spread the message by living it, and also share the information. But I think the most important thing is to really embody this, which is why I'm, delighted that we have movements now within the vegan movement that really are expressly about personal psychological evolution and not merely about being an activist, so I'm going to go out and change other people, because they're just going to resist. And I think the real change comes when we're living this and people feel it at a deeper level. So I'm going to get off my soapbox now and see if I get some comments and questions.
Well, actually, thank you so much for sharing that, because I think in your description, there was a beautiful train of thought there that that wrapped it all up into a spiritual seed, let's just say, that we can plant in others, as you mentioned. And I think that's what's really important for all of us to remember, is that it is about spirituality. When we're talking about veganism, as we understand the connections between the herding culture, just coming down to the ahimsa and coming back to that it's based on compassion for all living beings, and that when we, at our group, we're an important group within the vegan movement itself, because we're coming from that perspective, we're coming from that spiritual place, and I think that gives us a lot of strength to be able to advocate from a place of positivity, from a place of inclusion and welcoming, and also being open to looking at ourselves and making those changes. Now, I wanted to mention, many of you are familiar with Will's book. It's like the Encyclopedia of Veganism, the World Peace Diet. But he also has recently put out a CD, and it's guided meditations. And I have to say, this has been very profound for me to listen to it, and I encourage everyone to actually purchase a copy. I'm sure Will has it on his website. But I've been listening to it, and I wanted to mention that some of the words are really seeping into my consciousness. The idea of veganism as being inevitable, that it's something that the world will come to inevitably. And also in your discussion, Will, I think in the World Peace Diet meditation, you go into some very profound thinking and philosophizing about compassion, and how compassion kind of it gives birth to more compassion. And I think these are really valuable concepts, and it's so important when we're in a deep, relaxed state to hear these things. And I do think you're really one of our most profound thinkers, speakers, writers, and leaders in the vegan movement. And I'm so grateful to you for bringing your wisdom to our call tonight. And
thanks, Lisa. Yeah, if anyone's interested, I just held it up here. We're really happy about this. It's called World Peace Meditations. You can, we don't even have it on our website yet, but you can get it if you go to iTunes. You can get it there. You can download it from iTunes or send me an email. We're selling them for $10. And I was on a meditation retreat by myself in the mountains of Southern California a few years ago, and it kind of all started coming to me. And so I wrote down these various meditations. There's one on intuition, one on relationships, one on world peace, one on animals, one on earth healing, one on radiant health, one on abundance, and one on joy and gratitude. And then, as Lisa said, there's also World Peace Diet for Meditation, which is the longest of some of these ideas. And there's original piano music, and Madeline also joins in on the flute, sort of background music. But I think it's very helpful for vegans to try to work with these ideas that are in the World Peace Meditations, because they can help us to cleanse a lot of, it's good to go on a cleanse, right? To cleanse not just the physical toxins, but I think they're all, in a sense, metaphysical toxins, a lot of negativity and fear and judgmentalness, perhaps, or self-criticism that we've been bombarded with, really, growing up in this society. And we've been wounded, and we've put on armor, and we're in all kinds of, and to really, as you said, in a deep state, just to listen, take these ideas in. They're revolutionary ideas based on the infinite loving presence that is the source of all life, that is manifesting into our life, and understanding this at a deeper level. And I think as we are able to open to these ideas, our advocacy will become much more founded on a foundation that is guaranteed to be more fulfilling. I think for us and for other people, I think it's going to be more effective, because it's like A.J. Muste said, there is no way to peace. Peace is the way, right? There's no way to veganism. Veganism is the way, and veganism is nonviolence, it's joy, it's freedom, it's creativity, it's abundance, it's caring, it's love and mercy and tenderness and freedom. It's really what it is. It's our life manifesting those qualities, and as our life manifests those qualities, which are our true nature is all of those qualities, then our veganism is the natural expression of who we are, and it touches people. It's not something like, you don't even have to say you're a vegan anymore. You can say I'm a world peace dieter, or you can say something else, whatever it is. But we go beyond the labels. We're just living our lives as expressions of kindness, and that's real joy. It's abundance, and it's creativity. And I think that's when we really get to these stages of veganism that not only are more effective, but they're much more sustainable and filled with meaning for us.
Well, thank you, Dr. Tuttle. And we did have one other person raise their hand, but it looks like they just put their hand down. A person by the name of me. Okay. If you're still interested in raising your hand, you can just press 1 on the keypad of your phone. If anybody wants to do that. Oh, yeah, I can see Mia's done it. So if you don't mind, we have one more question. Go ahead and unmute Mia. Hold on a second. Okay, hold on one quick second there. We'll go ahead and do a couple technical things. There we go. Okay. So, Mi, are you available to ask your question?
Yeah, sorry, I have to change that.
It's okay.
To my real name, my name is Melissa. I just wanted to say, I absolutely love your book, and I have had it a long time, and I give it as gifts. And I heard you actually speak at the Vegan Society in Washington, D.C. many years ago. But my question was that I am in a meetup group that's called Plant-Based, the meetup group for Plant-Based Diet. And one of the things that they make a distinction is that there are people who do it for ethical reasons, and there are people who do it for, dieting reasons. And I have a lot of difficulty with that because they don't really acknowledge that both of them are important. And so I'm trying to figure out how to be able to do that, because I really feel like I'm just going there, I'm getting cooking lessons and things like that, but really the other point of the compassionate part and all of that is just not there.
Right. Yeah, I understand your question, I think. So, I think personally the Whole Foods plant-based diet, T. Colin Campbell and other nutritionists and doctors who are helping people to move to a healthier diet are recommending a Whole Foods plant-based diet, and they don't personally, I think themselves, care too much one way or the other if animals are hurt or not. That's not the motivation. The motivation is personal health, and so you're understandably put off, I guess, by people who don't care about animals at all, and and yet sometimes they may call themselves vegan. So I think the basic idea, of course, is that the definition of veganism by Donald Watson in 1944, when he coined the word vegan, is a philosophy and way of life which seeks to exclude, as far as possible and practical, all forms of exploitation of and cruelty to animals for food, clothing, or any other purpose. So that's the definition of veganism. He didn't say anything about being healthy or anything else. He said, or saving money. It's just about minimizing the violence and abuse and cruelty that I'm causing animals for food, clothing, or any other purpose. And so no one can use the word vegan about themselves if they're doing it for health reasons. I mean, you can say whatever you want, but that's not accurate. And so we can point that out. It's always good to point things out in using I statements like, yeah, I know exactly what you mean. I thought for a long time that anyone, you could be a vegan for all kinds of different reasons, but then I realized that actually, when I read the actual definition of veganism, I realized that it has nothing to do with health. It's really about kindness for animals. That's what veganism is. But my own motivation is that. But I think it's great also that people move to a plant-based diet out of their own health, because that's also reducing cruelty and violence to animals. And my hope is that as they go on that path and they're no longer harming animals, that their hearts will then open to the animals and their motivation will deepen, and they'll begin to actually eat a plant-based diet for ethical reasons as well as merely for their own interest. And I think if the motivation does not deepen, it's very easy to cheat and have a little chicken or a little cheese or whatever, and that happens a lot. People do that all the time. But I'm not going to cheat if I know that having a little chicken means I'm going to pay someone to stab one of my friends. I'm not going to do that. No way. So, but again, we can't force other people to deepen their motivation, but we can exemplify that. And I think by using I statements where we talk about ourselves, how we, our motivation, we're really glad. I'm really glad that my motivation for this went deeper, and I'm able to actually do this out of a sense of wanting to reduce suffering to others. And it's great to see more and more people are moving in that direction. And perhaps you have to decide yourself if your energy and time is best used with people who are on a path that you may wish it was going a little faster, but maybe you are helping more than you realize. But you may also feel like, gosh, these people are just impossibly, determined to just put their fingers in their ears every time I talk about this, and so I'm getting nowhere. So the heck with it, I'm not going to do it. And then maybe another door will open, and you'll find yourself with people who are more open, because those people may not be open. They may be really only care about their diabetes or only care about their potential heart disease, and as soon as they get that taken care of, they're going to if they can eat some chicken, they certainly will, by God, because that's their right to do that. And you may just get yourself frustrated trying to work with people who, I think it's better, we can't to work with people who are somewhat open to the message, because otherwise you're just really can be spinning your wheels and getting frustrated and get cynical and depressed, and that's not worth it. So there's a lot of people who are open, and but we have to do it in a way, I think, where we're talking to them, not down at them. Not like I have a superior motivation and I'm better than you. People will smell that. So try to do it in a way where we just talk about our own story, our own process. I learned this, and I'm really glad, and be very positive. I'm so glad I learned that, and I'm finding, as it's very healthy too. It's great, and just see how it goes. And that's what I would kind of hope that I would do in the situation, to try to not lose all, not to get too frustrated in the situation.
Well, thank you. I know we're out of time, but I have one more question, and that is, at church, I want to be able to bring out stuff about we have classes about different kinds of spiritualities and different things, and I wanted to be able to bring forth something about animal theology and those kinds of things, and I'm really kind of having a difficult time with that. And so I have books by Andrew Lindsay and J.R. Hyland, and I was wondering, do you have other resources that I could use to try and sort of show the people at my church that there are things out there that talk about this kind of things, and that it's worth our while to bring that into the forefront for others? Because I go to lots of church potlucks and things like that, and there's never anything for me to eat, and we talk about love and compassion and that, but there's never anything in there about our animals, and we have blessing of the animals and all that, but then there's this total disconnection when there's other things that deal with food and those sort of things.
Yeah, I think what kind of church is you going to?
It's a Methodist church.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, Yeah, I have a quote by the founder of Methodism. You know that quote by the founder of Methodism? I'll see if I can find it here quickly. He said, here it is, I just went right to it. John Wesley, the 18th century founder of Methodism, writes, quote, "I believe in my heart that faith in Jesus Christ can and will lead us beyond an exclusive concern for the well-being of other human beings, to the broader concern for the well-being of the birds in our backyards, the fish in our rivers, and every living creature on the face of the earth." So, I mean, at least you have a little bit of a foundation there, where you can have a discussion perhaps with people. The other thing that I've found in talking to people that's been successful is to just, I don't know if you're free to do it, but to have some kind of a book study group at your church, like maybe every Tuesday night or every other Tuesday night or whatever, to do a book study. Like you could do a book study on the World Peace Diet, for example, or maybe some other books, and people just read the book on their own, and they come together and you have discussion questions, and you don't have to be an expert. You can just facilitate it. Maybe it could be like a potluck and encourage people to bring plant-based foods, and you can, it's healthier and it's better for the environment, and it's more connected with what John Wesley was saying, the founder of Methodism, and just advertise it, put notes that's going to be happening at your church. And what you need to do is you've got to build a small community within your church. You're not the only one. And the only way to do that is to create an educational context where you can share these ideas. So people will not come to these ideas on their own usually. So if you can have a study group where people learn together and talk about in a circle, well, what am I going to do if I don't eat ice cream? And you don't have to answer. Somebody else in the circle will say, oh, actually, you don't have to worry. There's dairy-free ice cream that's delicious, and you can talk about the ideas. Well, what about, this? And they can say, well, what about plants feel pain too? Or you can say, well, actually this. You can talk about, people's ideas as you go through the ideas in the book. And what can happen, I've seen it happen in some churches, is that when you get to a certain number, it doesn't have to be a big number. Maybe it's only, 5% of the church congregation, but you'll hit a certain point where there's enough people in the congregation that are kind of on board with you about this, and then that'll start to make bigger changes. For example, there's potlucks. You can start to really have an impact on the church potlucks because most churches, for example, know that it's wrong to discriminate against people with disabilities, right? So in the old days, they just built stairs up to the church, and if someone came along in a wheelchair, and that's too bad. Too bad for you. You can't come in because, we don't have a ramp. Well, that's no longer possible. Now all the churches all have ramps because they saw that it was ethically wrong to discriminate against people just because they had a disability, because they couldn't, walk up the stairs. And so it's the same thing with potlucks. And to bring it up to the board of directors of the church to make a policy that all food that is eaten at all church functions that everyone brings must be vegan, because anyone can eat vegan food. And if you don't bring vegan food, that's like telling someone in a wheelchair, well, it's too bad for you. You're not going to eat what we're eating, We don't care about you. We don't care. We do not care about you. But that's the opposite of a religion. Religion is supposed to create a caring community. Everyone can eat vegan food, and it's delicious. And so all you need to do is give people, in the church bulletins and things, a bunch of different recipes and tips of what they can make, what they can bring to the potluck that'll be easy. They can bring pasta, they can bring potatoes, they can bring salads, they can bring vegetables, they can bring veggie burgers, they can bring mayonnaise, vegan mayonnaise, whatever. There's substitutes for everything, chicken, everything. And make it vegan, and everybody can eat it, and no one's left out. But you won't be able to do it if you just do it all by yourself. You have to have a few other people. You have to build the consciousness first. And then you have a group that presents that to the board, and then you have a chance to really create a bigger movement, raising the awareness in the whole congregation, and it can be fun. You can realize that these foods are delicious, they're healthier, and this is the kind of thing that can happen. It's happened in, if you see Plant Pure Nation, the movie that's coming out, they talk about this little town in Texas where the mayor, it's kind of like the same thing, the mayor decided to go vegan, and because of his, just because of the diet, he was a diabetic, but he got involved and pretty much, you know, he got the fire chief, and he got, you know, so they have these big vegan, conferences there now, and the whole town, you know, it's really changed. And I think we can, you know, we can if we kind of work to increase the awareness and a few other key, you know, see if you can see who the key people are in your congregation too, maybe a few of those that are maybe open to it, and you know, you can really make a positive difference. I don't know any other church you can go to. I mean, I could also say, well, go to Unitarians, and you might have a better chance, but they're not much better. I haven't been to any churches. I mean, Unity, some of the more progressive churches, but they all eat meat and dairy. They're all about the same. They all resist it. So, you know, there's also the Christian Vegetarian Association. You can Google them. They have pamphlets. They have flyers. They have videos. You can show. You can share. You can bring, you know. But it's mainly about, I think, having groups, a small group that can then maybe grow.
Yeah, and I thought about doing that, but I'm glad you said that you don't do an expert, because I've read your book many times, but I'm like, there's no way that I can answer everybody's question if I tried to do a study group or something like that.
Right.
So thank you. Those are great suggestions.
Right, and we do have. If you go to our website, we have a training. You know, you can go through like a 4-week or an 8-week training where we help people just get more confidence in being Rotary Site facilitators. And that a lot of people find that to be very helpful too. So you can check that out. And we have a monthly call.
Thank you so much.
We do all that stuff. So
the other thing I just wanted to tell you, I had dialysis.
Yeah.
I used to take dialysis before I had a kidney transplant, and I used to listen to your CDs all the time when I was at the dialysis, and it made me feel so much better. It just calmed me down while I was on the dialysis machine.
Wow, I'm glad to hear that. Was that music or was that talking?
It was the music.
It's the music.
It was definitely, it was in my bag all the time when I went to the dialysis unit, and I had to have it with me while I was on the machine.
I have to do a new album, Music for Dialysis.
That's right. Thank you.
Aww.
All right.
Thank you, Melissa. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Melissa.
And Dr. Tuttle, we do have one more person with their hand up. I don't know if you'd be open to another question.
Okay. I should wrap it up, but maybe I'll try to answer this one quickly. Get going.
Okay. Okay, so Nancy, I know you have your hand up, so I'll go ahead and unmute you there. And this will be our last and final question. So,
Thank you.
Nancy?
It's really quick. I just went to a one-day immersion for plant-based diet, and they talked to Dr. Who wrote the Campbell, the Plant Pure Nation. It's Campbell, right? And he made a comment about vegans that was a little bit like, vegans, they're just ethical. They're not necessarily healthy. And he kind of, I sensed a little, he was dissing vegans a little bit, and I almost wanted to write to him and say, excuse me, but you need us and we need you, And I was so glad that person just asked, because there's another plant-based meetup here, and I have the same thing. I go and I want to just scream, but it's, you have to have that big why of why you're doing this. Something so intimate in our lives, if it's not ethical, like you said, it's not really vegan. But I don't think I'd want to go and tell people you can't say you're vegan, because at this point that you're bringing about not trying to change people and just tell our story, and how there's, there's still that oppressive, kind of violence, even saying you have to be different than you are. And it's a really fine line to walk, because I inform people a lot, and sometimes I just tell them this is what's happening in animal agriculture, and they get very mad, or they say things about me. I actually feel like sometimes for people to reach that point where they get angry, sometimes I actually think that that's progress, because I would rather see that than have them say, oh, yeah, sure, I didn't blow it off. So I feel like, yeah, okay, did I make you angry? Did I really offend you? I am honored to offend you. As long as I didn't actually offend them personally. So I feel like we can't really be afraid of that negativity, because that's how people get unraveled from that social conditioning. And I'm sorry I took too long.
Okay, I'll just pick up your words. Thanks so much, Nancy. Just briefly, I think that's a good point. We have to use our intuition. I find myself, some people I'm very kind of gentle with, and other people I'm more forceful with, and they get angry. My sister was an example. She got really angry quite a few years ago, and slammed the door and left, and you vegans think you're so superior, and blah blah blah. But a couple of years later, she sent me an email and she said, I'm a vegan now. And she's been a vegan now for like 15 years.
Wow.
Yeah, she's a really and her daughter's vegan, and now her 2 grandkids are vegan from birth, and my mother's vegan. So, it's sometimes, you just plant the seeds, and sometimes people will react, but try to do it in a way where you're really bringing the message in a loving way. And then later they'll feel that. They'll feel into that. And you don't have to say, don't you know animals go through this? When I discovered what dairy cows go through, I just found I couldn't eat those. I just couldn't eat those products anymore, and I'm so glad now.
Right.
When you say that, you can smile and walk away, and just know in your heart you just planted a depth charge in that person's consciousness that's going to explode at some point. They're just going to go, whoa, and they will change on their own.
Yeah.
It'll be they make the connection. They may not even remember you that said it, but you've planted a seed very deeply because you planted as their friend with love and the truth, and the true part of their true nature resonates with it, and the surface level might go, whatever, but the deep level is going, I don't want to be a slave causing violence. Actually, do I? And so I think that's the thing, just plant the seeds using I statements. I found out, I discovered, and I'm so glad. And then let it go, like the Bhagavad Gita says. Don't be attached to the fruit of our actions. If we're attached, if we keep wanting to change it, then we slow down the process. Just let it go. And trust that people will make the positive change. Yeah. All right. So now I think we should wrap up.
So I wanted to thank you, Dr. Tuttle, for being on the show with us tonight, and also to thank everyone who reached out and asked questions, because that's an important part of what we're doing. We're trying to create community and offer forums for people to share and discuss. Like, what does it mean to be vegan, and how does it relate to our spiritual practice? If veganism is our spiritual path, we need a place to ponder it, to reflect on it, and to practice it together. So this is our opportunity, and thanks so much for joining us today, Dr. Tuttle and Will. It's so nice to have you here, and to if you have an announcement or anything you'd like to share with us?
So I'll just wrap up here. I'll just say one thing. I was just thinking about it before the call. Actually, I was thinking, people should be aware, probably, that I do think it's important for us as vegans, spiritual vegans, to eat a really clean diet. We do not have anything in our house that we eat that's not organic and vegan and pretty much whole foods. So we don't buy processed foods hardly at all, maybe a little Vegemese, and I'm not sure what else. But otherwise, it's whole grains. We have a grinder. We grind our own grains. We have a garden. We grow a lot of our own food this time of year. It comes from our garden. We grow our own sprouts and herbs and zucchinis and tomatoes, and we have like 25 fruit trees we planted. We've only been here for 3 years. But, I guess the point I'm making is we don't buy anything with chemicals. My wife is really she's so gung-ho about this, but I think we should be careful as vegans, because we don't want to give T. Colin Campbell and these people, the health people, we don't want to have a bunch of vegans that are sick all the time because they're eating junky food and supporting Monsanto because they buy canola oil that's genetically engineered. And we should really stick with organic, whole food, healthy, clean food, locally grown if we can, grow it ourselves. And have that be it's a great foundation. There's some good points that these people are making. We vegans should be, I think, really, if we care about spirituality, we should care about not buying foods that are not organic, that are polluting water and killing animals, and doing what we can to heal ourselves. Don't go to doctors. I haven't been to a doctor in 40 years, and really try as best we can to rely on spirituality and health and local wisdom traditions, and support local, as much as we can, local farmers who are doing the right thing. That's all very important. I think part of the whole puzzle that I found is something that we don't want to support the toxic industries as much as we can. But otherwise, I really want to say that if anyone would like to have me or Madeline and I, come and visit you in your local area. We were in Connecticut, I think it was, about a year ago, maybe last fall, and I spoke to the Vegan Spirituality group there, and it was a wonderful event. And we were in Hawaii, the Vegan Spirituality group there sponsored lectures recently, and I think we'll probably go to someplace in Oakland at some point. But we're happy. We're going to be, in fact, we're probably going to be on the road in our RV for maybe a year in 2016. So we'll be traveling around North America. If you'd like to have us come, we can put on a talk and have the public come and help promote this message. So stay in touch and let us know if you're interested in working together. We also have the World Peace Diet Facilitator training. So if you want to go more deeply into the World Peace Diet, which is, as you know, a book on spirituality, we have that training as well. You can go to our website and find out more about that. And it's a nice community too. Mm-hmm. So much love to you all. Thanks so much, Lisa. Thank you all of you for listening and being part of it. And thank you everyone for the work you're doing. It's great. Thanks.
Great. Thank you. Thank you so much, Will. And I have just a couple brief things to mention. First is to thank everybody for being on the call. I can see that people have really been with us during the entire call, and it's gone a little over, but that's okay. It's such a treat to have Will here. We're so excited about that. Two little announcements. One, I would like to let you know that next month for our call, we're going to be, Judy will likely be back with us. She's our co-host. And then we'll also, Judy Carmen, and then we'll also have Lisa Kemmerer. She's an expert on animals and world religions, and she'll be joining us as a speaker as well. So we've got lots to look forward to. And we're going to be changing our platform. Just the login information might change. I'll send you all an email with the replay, and that will have information about how to log on the next time. We're going to try a different format that might be a little easier on the tech side. So stay tuned for that, and we'll keep you posted. But meanwhile, thank you all so much for joining us tonight, and thanks again to Will, and just sending you out with lots of prayers and blessings and just this idea of being kind to one another and really planting those seeds that Will spoke about. And I'm going to actually just unmute everybody all at once now, so we can just have good evening and peace to everyone. So good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night. Love you. Until next time, take care. Good night.
Good night.
Bye.